My name is Bil'ak. I live in the Netherlands. I've been living there for most of my life, although I was born in Czechoslovakia. And I work with editorial design primarily, graphic design. I work with modern dance and typography. Projects I've been working on for the last 10 years, maybe 20 different dance pieces for various dance theatres. So I usually work with the choreographer, who's a very good friend of mine, Bil'ak. And together, every time a theatre requires a new creation of a dance piece, we brainstorm and see what can we do. Dance performances need to be designed. So we design what should happen, how long they should be, how many people we need, what kind of music, what kind of connections should happen. So it's really designing from scratch what should be happening and what kind of message you want to transmit to the audience. So it's really working with all the different elements, and my role is really to connect them somehow. So usually we usually work separate light designer, separate composer, separate choreographer, they're separate dancers, but the connection bit is my work. I've been always interested in text. I write a lot for different magazines or books, so it's interesting to consider text as a conveyor of information. And I'm also interested in the form attribute of text as well. And so I've been interested in this intersection of content and form. Originally it started when, a long time ago, when I couldn't find many typefaces suitable for typesetting. For example, my mother language, which is Slovak, which requires a lot of different accents. So they didn't exist. So I had to make them and then slowly do more and more. And then I became interested in languages in general. So after working a lot with Latin, I started kind of venturing into non-Latin script, more complex scripts. Arabic, Hebrew are fairly simple ones, but then in Indian languages. So by now we work with quite a number of languages because they often tend to be ignored, and there's probably a lot more need to create typefaces for languages which don't have this great variety of shapes and forms. Because at the end, typeface is working like a voice, and there's just too many voices for Latin and not so many for other languages. Well, I mentioned recent projects, and a lot of the recent projects are concerning publishing activities. When I say publishing, I mean you're investing certain time and energy and money into something, and you're trying to recover it back. So we publish a magazine called Works at Work, which rethinks or redefines different ways of the publishing activities, from financing the publications, so looking at different sources of revenues for magazines rather than advertising, which is primarily a source of income for magazines. So we kind of look for alternatives, and there are plenty of alternatives even when people don't talk about it. Looking for alternative way of distribution of magazines, until finally different production methods of magazines. We all had to do this homework in order to publish the magazine itself. So the magazine itself is about creativity on unexpected places, and that's why we tend to look at all these mundane parts of distribution, for example, and put as much creativity in it as we put in the layout or writing of magazines. And in the same way, I consider every other project that we do, because most of the projects are self-initiated. There's no client behind them, no one asking us to do it. That's why you see a lot of responsibility for the success of a project. So you're involved with it from the very beginning until the very end. There's a huge problem for type designers that their work is being pirated, but often they just complain about it, or they hire lawyers. But no one kind of thinks about a more constructive way what to do about this. One project which we started 3 months ago is called Font Stand, and it looks at what is wrong with distribution of digital assets. Looks at trying to learn lessons from distribution of digital music, and how streaming methods basically allowed erasing piracy almost completely, like in Europe. Suddenly, you don't, because there are legal ways and easy ways to get things from Spotify and iTunes. Piracy disappeared. However, there's a new problem: is that these streaming methods don't compensate the authors, makers fairly, because it comes at a flat rate price, and it doesn't go back to the makers. With what we did with FontStand is that we try to address technical problems, that we create certain value, and it's very easy to accessible to people. But we also try to find a business model that the revenue goes back to the authors, and is they are fairly compensated. And what we did is that we created kind of online platform where fonts can be tried for free. They're on the computer for an hour, and you can do whatever you want with them. And once you choose them, you can rent them, for example, for a month, and pay only a fraction of the price, not the full price, because if you use it only for one book, you shouldn't be paying as much as a newspaper using it for a decade. So a lot of our work is kind of looking at this different way, logistics almost, rather than just the surface of things.